Hello, this is Randy with Excel for freelancers, and thanks for joining us for the mobile sales order. In this comprehensive training, I am going to show you how to create brand new sales order with unlimited items and products that we can add, edit, and delete from any sales order. We'll also be able to choose any customer we want, and to top it all off, I'm going to show you how to take all this and create a mobile application in just a few clicks. It's going to be a great training. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Each and every week I bring you these amazing videos to create comprehensive and applications you've never seen before in Excel, using the power of Excel to create your own applications. So if you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and click the subscribe button along with the notifications icon. That way, each and every Tuesday, you will get notified of these videos. In this week's training, we've got a ton to show you, and I hope we get it all in. I'd like to do it in about an hour, but there is so much to show you here. We're going to give it a try. We have the ability to create this unlimited type of application where we can easily add different items to an invoice, a sales order invoice. We're going to take these, we can choose different customers, relatively simple, by adding, updating customers and new orders. Once we get finished with that, we're going to show you how to take this particular application, create a mobile application so that you can then have all that information on your phone so you can distribute it accordingly. It's going to be a great training. We're going to be using AppSheet just as we did last week, except this is a brand new training. So let's get started. But before we do that, I wanted to make sure you knew of some amazing products that I have. A lot of you have requested. Of course, you can get this workbook free using the links down in the description. But of course, if you want to get over 100, in fact, I've got a bonus right now with 17 additional workbooks, so about a total of 117, all for a very low price of just $37 US. I don't know how long I'm going to keep that open, so make sure you grab that offer right away if you haven't already. That's 100 workbooks. Actually, it's over 100 by this point. So just $37. So go ahead and pick that up if you want. That helps us keep these training videos free each and every week. If, of course, you do love Excel, there is no better way to learn Excel than with the Excel resource guide. That is an amazing 1,000 resources. We've got over 100 PDF downloads. We've got total of 100 different utilities and Excel applications, 100 free courses, 100 paid courses. So it's an amazing resource guide, the ultimate Excel resource guide. I hope you picked it up. And our advanced Excel dashboard masterclass is one of the best you have ever seen. It'll teach you how to create an amazing single-click dashboard. If you have not enrolled yet, where thousands of students are getting much better freelance jobs due to what they're learning in that, so go ahead and if you enroll in that course, and you will be sure to get great freelancing jobs along with you being able to create your own applications. All right, let's continue on with the training. We've got so much to show you in this. So the ability, I've created a small application. It's relatively simple, but it's all combined on this one screen. But we do have three different tables. We have customers, just a simple customer table. We have orders, just very simple order table. We have order details. Now the order details is this. For example, if there's an order ID, status, and delivery date, and order date. So those are your order details. But excuse me, those are your order. That's your order information. But each order has multiple types of products that you can add. So these are the order details that are stored. So in the order details, you would have the order number, like order number 1 would be have here apple, kiwi. It would have another apple again, and plum again, and kiwi. So that's like that, so that we combine those. So when we have the orders, you can see that, let's say click on order number 1, which we just reviewed. So order number 1 would have apple, kiwi, apple again, plum. So that is how we do it. We're also going to show you how to add items to any work order simply by clicking on an item and then clicking add to the list. We can also clear a product out, and we can very easily add a new product. Let's say we want to add a raisins to the list. We can add that. Description, California raisins. And we want a product. Let's say we have a product ID and our price. We can give it a price that's kind of high for raisins. Okay, so we can save the product, and we can also add this product to list, put in a quantity. Let's say we want to buy 45 of them, and then add it to the list. So quickly we can easily add brand new products. We can even add a picture to that. Desktop here we are, raisins. Click OK, and then we can update the product. I'm just going to update that picture so that we can click another one and click the raisins. We've got a lot of features. We can add customers simply by clicking on a customer. It's going to add all the customer information to that order, and then we also have the ability to update the order so everything gets saved. That way, when we go to another order and then we go back to the order, everything comes up, including what we just added. It's a lot of features, and it's really, really important. This is the first training that I've ever done where we do a comprehensive and detailed item list. We've only done one-on-one, so I'm really excited to show that to you and how that works so that we can have unlimited items, products, or whatever based on a single order, single invoice. So that's really great. And then when we get done with that, we're going to show you how to upload that to AppSheet and create your own application. So let's get started on this because we do have a lot to cover into the VBA and show you just how we did that. Some areas we're going to go a little bit faster that I've covered in previous trainings because I've got a lot to cover and I want to get all this in. I don't want to repeat myself, especially if it's things like we've covered so many times before, although I'll try to move slower in certain areas. But I want to make sure that I squeeze in all of the training I can, so we may move a little faster on this one in certain areas that we keep covering continually, especially like with things like advanced filter or uploading pictures, which I've done in probably like 30 different videos. So things like that where I've covered so frequently before. Well, I'll move a little bit faster so we can get everything. So into the Visual Basic, Alt F11 will get you there into the screen, and we really have three different modules. We've got customer max, and this is going to focus on our customer, and all we have is really customer load. I didn't do a lot with the customers as far as adding in new customers, deleting customers. I kind of left that out. I just want to keep it because we have so many features on that. So basically, the only feature we have for customers is just the ability to load the customer. And all that does is it takes information from this list. We have 4 different customers here, and it's going to bring that information into here, 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 and here. In this particular training, we're not going to use data mapping, and there's a reason for that, because I want these data structures just to remain stable. In other words, we didn't add a row for data mapping, so we'll show you what it looks like without data mapping. It's a few more lines of code, but we don't have a lot here, so you can get an idea of how you can compare. Maybe you don't like data mapping, maybe it just confuses you and you want to use the other way, which is fine. So I'll show you an alternative way, a few more lines of code. But if you have a lot of data, if you have 50 columns of data, I do suggest you use data mapping because it is a lot of writing of code. Here we have just a little bit of data, so it's not really a big issue on that. All right, so we have customers. The only really issue that we're doing is loading customers. So this customer load, we'll go over that real quickly. This is what it looks like without data mapping. So for every column, we're adding the information in. This is what it looks like. When data mapping, we use just 3 lines of code, but we also have a row here dedicated to data mapping. So all I'm doing with this line of code, and we're going to move quickly, is I'm taking the name in whatever row here, and I'm going to add it right here. Then I'm going to take the street address and I'm going to add it right here. But how do I know what row? How do I know, like, for example, if I want to load, let's say, Carol Klein, how do I know what row her details are? If you look in the customers, we'll see Carol's on row 4. So how do I know that? Well, I've created a named range for customer names. So if we look into the formulas, named range, we're going to see a named range that we call customer name. And it starts on row 2 and it goes all the way to the last row. It's a dynamic name range where we use it. So as the customers increase, then of course you will be able to expand this named range. We've gone over offset this so many times, so we're not going to go over it this time, but this creates a name range so that I know. So let's say if I want to find Carol, I know it's going to be the third. We're starting in 2 and it's going to be the third choice, right? So if we use a match and we look for Carol equals match, we're looking for Carol, we're going to look up Carol and we're going to look for it in customer name, and we want an exact match. What's going to return? It's going to return 3, right? But what if I want I really want the row number, which is 4. So all I need to do is add 1 to that, and that'll give us 4. So that's really the formula I need to get the row. Once I've got the row, I can put that into a field, and I did just that. If we slide over here, Columns A and B are used just for admin, so we'll hide those. And if we look on the customer row, you'll see that we have that same formula right here, except we're doing E7, which is the customer which is the field in which the user is going to select. And you'll see it's the same thing. I've added one, and I've wrapped that in if error just in case there's an error, an issue, or it's not found. Of course, it's going to return blank, which is the double quotes here. So that's all it is. So now that we have the row number, and that row number is defined in cell B4, we can then add all the information. So all we do is first we want to check if it's empty. We'll let them know, please select a correct customer and then exit. So if it's empty, if it's not empty, we're going to assign customer row to B4, and then all we're going to do is take the fields 87, K9, and all those fields, and we're going to populate them from sheet 2. Sheet 2 is our customers. So really all we're doing, it's really quite simple. Especially, it's simple to explain because there's no data mapping, so it's a little bit easier, but it also takes longer to program. This is, what is this line? Let's say we've got 6 lines or 7 lines of code here. If we use data mapping, we'll use 3 lines of code. So it's not a huge difference when we have a little bit of data, but if you have a lot of data, I'll urge you to take a look in my previous videos in which we do use data mapping. I'll show you 2 different ways, so you get to choose which way you would like, but this is without. So H7 equals whatever is in B, which is the email. K7 equals the phone. So that's just how we do it. We just populate that line by line by line. So these fields get populated directly from this table right here. So it's very simple. We just go through it. Okay, so we understand how we load the customer now. That's all that macro is. Let's get into the order max. Now the order macros, what do the order macros do? Let's take a look at some of the features and functions that we have, and then we'll get into it so we understand it. We have one sheet called sales order. We have a few different options. We can click new order, which is what it's going to do, is going to assign an order ID automatically. And then it's going to clear all the blank cells. So we have that. We have the cancel new. What does the cancel new do? The cancel new is going to take whatever the first order is and load it up. What is that? What's the first order? Our orders are here. Order ID here. So it's going to take whatever is in A2 and it's going to put it right here into E5. And what that does, E5 will load it automatically. How does that work? Well, if we go into the developers and we can see that here, into the sheet sales order, this is the sheet where everything's happening. I've got no code here. There's nothing here. These are just data, so there's nothing here. The only sheet I have code on is here. So what's that saying is there's gonna, if the user makes a change to E5 and B3 does not equal empty, then run a macro called order load. Why is it B3 does not equal empty? B3 is our row number for the order. We're using match again. If you've seen my videos, this is all very familiar with it, so you get used to it. B3 is the order row using match. E5 order ID, that is a named range for our orders. That is a named range. So that's how so if we look under the name manager, let's get out of this cell. So if we look in the name manager and we look under order ID, we tab it over, it's going to show us that that's all using offset and count A to pull up our dynamic named range for order ID. This named range will increase as we add orders. So it's great. So we can just pull it. So that way we get the row, the order row here in B3. So as long as there's a value in B2, B3, we know we can load that order. So we're going to load all the details from that. So we have that. We have load order. We have cancel new. We have new order. We have update the order. All that's going to do is save. Now update the order and save order are the same macro. Same macro. I'll show you how we do that. And then we have delete order. So we have all of those macros. Again, new order, update or save, delete, and cancel new. Let's go over those individually to see just how we did that. That's in the order max module. The first we have is order load. And what I want to do in order load, I want to do 2 things, primarily just 2 things. I want to load the order details. That would be the status, the delivery date, the order date, and I want to load the customer name. And then I want to load all of the details on this particular item, all the details. So the first initially is going to come from here. Order status, customer name, order date, delivery date, and total cost. This we got to fix up. That should not be complete. I'll fix that. So we've got that ability there. So we want to add all those details in. This should be a formula. Let's populate that and I'll fix that. formula. There we go. Now we've got it. All that's going to do is add up the total. We'll go over that formula in just a minute. That is going to get us the total cost of all of the orders based on the order details here and based on the order ID. We'll go over that. I'll go over that in detail, so not to worry. So basically all we're going to be doing is adding this in here, and we will add that in. So bringing this information into this. It's relatively simple so far. Then what I'm going to do is to load that is I'm going to take our order ID here and I'm going to place it in the order ID right here. Remember, these are all the details for all of the sales orders, all of them. So what I want to do is I want to know only the details, the lines, the products for order number 1. So we're going to run an advanced filter. We're going to use this as a criteria. This is our criteria. And then what it's going to do is going to return all the results. The results are going to be here. All of the products for order number 1 are going to come here. Then I'm going to take all this information and I'm going to bring it right into this table here. And I'm going to explain what these numbers are. These will be hidden eventually. So that's how we're going to be doing that. So let's go ahead and do that now into the code so you understand the process of how it's going. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to define the order row. I need to know what order we're focused on. That might be an existing. We've got to make sure that it is an existing row. And the last row, we need to define that because I'm going to run an advanced filter. The last results row, because we need to get the last results. What is the last row and the last results row? Well, the last row, we're going to go for order deals. If we're going to run an advanced filter on all of this data, right, I need to know the last row. In this case, the last row is 35. Then I want to bring it over just as we did. We got an advanced filter. Then I need to know what the last results row. In this case, the last results row is 9. So because we need to bring all this data. So I know where it starts. I just don't know where it ends. So that variable is going to tell me where it ends using end XLF. So then I can bring this information in. So that's why we need to define those. With sheet 1, we're focused on primarily on sheet 1. We need to make sure that B3, if it's empty, that is our order. We can't load the order unless we actually have a row. So we need to make sure that they've selected the correct order ID. I've shown you that formula. That's just an index match. Next up, I want to clear all the associated fields in the order field. When we're bringing in a new order, we want to make sure that we clear everything out. Well, what is that? Well, that is all of the orders here. That is all of the fields here, not the order ID. Remember, the user just changed it. So everything but this, because this is important. We need to know the new order ID. So everything else, all the other fields associated with this, and including this table here, all of this, I want to clear this out, except not this. This is a formula here in column K, so we want to make sure we don't clear out column K. So we would be clearing out columns D through J, and then of course L. We could have also placed this here in this column too. It's going to be hidden. Either one would work just fine. All right, so moving on in our code. So we want to clear out, and we also want to clear out the table here. So this clears all the fields out. Next up, we're going to set the order row to B3 if we're going to load it. Then I want to load all the details. All the details from sheet 3. Sheet 3 is our orders. Again, without data mapping, sheet 3 is our orders. Column B would be the status. Column C would be the customer, order date, and so on and so forth. So that just gives you an idea of how we go about that. All right, let's center this just because I like it. Okay, so now it brings all this information into the sales order. So it's going to bring in our status and put it right here. It's going to bring in our order date here, delivery date here, and also our customer. Now, after we change the customer, automatically that the address, the information, customer information loads. So I don't need to add in all that because I have a macro. Remember that macro that I just showed you? As soon as we change that, it's going to load all the data. So all I need to do is tell VBA to change just this one field. Because, why is that? Because on any change of E7, run load the customers. Let me show you that real quick. On any change of E7, and making B4 does not equal empty. B4, it tells us our customer row. That's very important. If B4, our customer row, is not empty, and the user has made a change to E7, then run the macro load customers. So that's very easy. I went over this macro already. So that's all we have to do. So if we tell VBA, put the customer in E7, automatically the customer is going to load. So it's really easy. Again, here, let's go back into the order macros. E7, right? This is our customer name. So as soon as VBA makes the change, E7 equals the customer name coming from C in the order row. It's going to load all those customer details. orders here, customer name in column C, as soon as this name gets put right into the sales order here, all of the customers. So now within our macro, we've updated our status, our order date and delivery date. We've added the customer information and all the macros associated, which adds our customer details. Now I just need to make sure we add in all of the table information here, all the information on this table. How do we do that? Okay, so continuing on with our macro, we've added the information and now we need to load the order details. So the first thing I want to do is clear any previous cells from results, perhaps in the advanced filter. So with sheet 4, of course, is our order details here. So what are we doing with that? I'm going to clear the results. M2 through S999. Let's take a look at that. Order details, M2 through S. I want to clear all of that, just like that. I'm going to keep this here. So all we need to do in our advanced filter is add in our order ID, then run our advanced filter. All the results are going to go right here. So let's go ahead and do that inside the macro. Continue on. So we're going to clear the previous cells. And then what I want to do is I want to add in, let me just put the note here. This is our order ID. Order ID. Our order ID is going to come from E5 and we're going to place it in L2. Let's take a look at that real quick. Sales order coming from E5 and we're going to place it right into L2. So once we place that, we can then run our advanced filter. As long as we need to get the last row. So we need to get the last row here, it's 35. We're going to use end XLUP to do that. So the next line of code, we will have the last row equals sheet 4 A999 and XLUP. That's going to bring in our last row and it's going to tell us now we're ready to run our advanced filter. We've done this a lot. I'll move quick. A1 through G, including the header rows, where we're going to run an advanced filter. I want to copy that information. I'm going to use the criteria L1 and L2. All this is the order ID and the header name. The order ID and the header name. And we're going to copy it to M1 through S1. That's where our results are going to go. And unique is false. Lines that are exactly the same can be added too. So it's no problem. So that's going to bring in our results. So when we run that, it's going to bring it. Then I want to know the last results row. In this case, so what I want to do that, let's go ahead and run it because there's no data here. There's no data here. But as soon as I run it, all I need to do is just double click and exit out. It's going to rerun it again back into the order details. And we'll see now our order details. So we need to know the last row, M, and the last row will tell us there's always going to be an order ID, what the last row is. Then I know where to start bringing over the data. So we're going to use that. Of course, if our last row of data is less than 2, then we need to exit out. That means there is no data. So moving on, if the last results row using M, this is going to get us our last results row. Then we just need to run a check. If the last results row is less than 2, go to no data. No data is down here. It's going to skip everything else. We don't want to bring in any data, right? I don't want to bring in any data into this table if there is no data. So we need to run a check on that just to make sure. Then we're ready. So now that there is data, we're ready to bring it over. We're going to bring it over into three different lines of code because they're separated. D through E is going to bring us our order details. That's our order. That's our product name. Let me put it what it is. Product name and product description. Let's bring that in. I'll make that more accurate. Product name and description. What's that? Why do I have that separated? Well, because I'm using a merge cells on those. So that means product name and product description. D through E equals, what does it equal? It equals here. N through O. So we're just going to take all this data right here and bring it over into our sales order right here. So that's all we're doing. Next up, because you see how this is multiple columns here, that's why I did it in 2 steps, because I can't bring it straight over. This is multiple columns, right? Different columns, but yet this, our order details, is just one column. So I can't bring it all over, and I can't just copy the entire table and bring it over because the columns are different. The column numbers are different. So I have to do this way first, then this, and then what I need to do is I have a formula, and then I need to skip it again. Why is that? Because this formula right here, I'm not going to touch. So we're not copying it straight over. So I'm going to bring in the next 3 right here, keeping the formulas here, and then I want to bring in the rows right here. So that's why we're doing it in 3 different steps. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. So that's 3 different lines of code that we're bringing in. So step 1, Let's do that again. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. So that's it. And this would be order details, and this would be the row numbers. So that's all we're doing in those 3 steps. B6 set to false. B6 controls whether it's a new order or not. So we're just going to set that to false so that we know it's not a new order. Then what I want to do is I want to load the button sets. You're familiar with this. Look, there's 2 different button sets. There's one button set. It's called existing order group. So these 3 buttons, new order, update order, and delete order, are only going to appear when we have a existing order, an order that's previously being created. However, when we have a new order, I want another button set to come up. What button set is this called? This is called new order group. This button set is called save order and cancel new, 2 buttons. So these buttons we only want to be associated when the user actually has a new order. The order ID is automatically set based on the next available order ID, and they're ready to enter all the information. So we'll get to that. All right, so back into our orders. So back into our load here, we have these 3 lines. We've set it to false, and these 2 button sets I want to reset here. Existing order we want to show because it's an existing order, so I want to show this group of 3 buttons, and I want to hide the group of 2 buttons, which is just for new orders. I want to hide that set. That's it. That's how we load the order. Okay, how do we do a new order, right? What is a new order? Well, in this macro, when we click new order, what do I really want to do? I want to do a few things. I want to, 1, change the button sets. I want to show the button set that says new order group, and I want to hide the existing button set. So I want to do those 2 things. I want to clear all the fields. I should really clear this picture too. I'll update that too. I got to clear this picture too. And then I want to add in an order ID. So let's do that. Let's first update that. We want to remove, let's take a look at this right here. I've got it here. Under the product macros, I want to hide that. Actually, I want to delete that shape. So this will do it here. These 3 lines of code will delete the shape. So we're going to go back into the order mac. On the new order new here, all I'm going to do is paste in those lines. And what this is going to do is delete that thumbnail picture, because we really don't want any pictures when we have a new order. So there we go. Now when we click cancel new and new order, that picture is going to be gone, right? We don't want any picture there if it's a brand new order. Okay, good. We got that covered. So what do? Let's take a look here. First, we're going to clear all of the fields. That's important. Clearing all the associated fields. I want to clear the contents of the table. That's important. And also, I want to set this up brand new. I also want to set this here, this order ID, to the next available one. Now, how do we do this? Well, as you see, we have an order here, 9. How do we set it to 10? How does it know that? We're going to use the max function. Previously, we've used it in formulas, but I want to show you how to use it in VBA. So the first thing you want to remember is that we have a named range called order ID here. And this is a named range. Now, to use this, you have to make sure those order IDs are numbers. They must be numerical and cannot have any text in them, any letters. So keep that in mind. They must be numerical. So we've got a dynamic named range for order IDs, and it's only numeric. So what I want to do that is I just want to get the max of it, and I want to add 1. So all we're doing, but in VBA, is equals the max of what? Order ID here. Then I want to add 1. It's very, very simple. So that's going to get us done. So that's all I want to do, but I want to do it in VBA. So how do we do that? So pretty much the same way. So we take E5, because that's where we're going to put that order ID, and we're going to run one of the worksheet functions called max. And what are we going to max? We're going to use the order ID, which is here, the named range, sheet 3, order ID, plus 1. That's simple. Adds the next order. So that's all we have to do. That add the next available order ID. And also, next up, I want to hide the existing orders. Remember, this is a brand new order, so we need to hide the 3 button sets, and we need to show the new order group. So we're hiding and showing. I also want to set the new order. B6 is going to control whether our new order is, and that will go right here. B6, I want to set it to true to make sure that it's a new order, so we can differentiate between new orders. That's important. When we save it, we need to know if it's an existing or new order. So B6 is going to tell us if it's a new or not. Okay, moving on. On air, again, I did the code that I just added, which is going to remove the picture or delete any thumbnail picture. Why do we have to wrap it in on air, resume next, and on air, go to? The reason we want to wrap it there is because if it's it's going to return a bug if for some reason this shape is not there. So as long as it's there, it's not going to return. So this way it fixes if there's any issues by using the air trapping and sandwiching it between on air resume next and on air go to 0 that way. All right, so we've got it. Now we're going to use the same macro for save or update. So I've got here, so when I add a new order, I want the ability to save it, or if it's an existing order, I want the ability to update it. So how do we do that? Same macro, right? Because all we're doing is but just a little bit of a difference. What's the difference? Well, for example, a new order wouldn't have any order row, but an existing order would have an order row. So existing order would be 2. So how do we know? Well, if it's a new order, right? If it's a new order, where are we going to find it? We're going to find the new row here would be 11. Which is the first available row. Otherwise, we know that if it's an existing order, it would be one of these here. So we just have to differentiate that. Once we have the row, we can put it. Also for new orders, I want to put in the order ID, and I want to put in this formula here, total cost. So I want that formula in there for new orders, but not for existing orders. Okay, so let's go into the update. So we want to determine the order row define it as long. It's going to be a whole number. In the item row, because we're going to go through the items. We also want to add all the items in. What is that? Let's take a look at that. All of these items, right, we need to add into our order details into this table right here. So we want to make sure we add those in. So we need to know what the item row is as we're going to go through, starting on 20 and going all the way to the last item row and going through and adding each item to the order details table. So that's important. We'll need to go through that. All right, next up inside our code, we have the order detail row. We need to keep track of it, and the last item row as long. The product row is long. With sheet 1, we need to make sure if B3 is empty, it's going to be a new order. Why would it be empty? Well, B3 is a formula right here. So if it's a new order, B3 would be empty because there's no 10, right? It's looking for 10. It doesn't find 10 because it's not been added yet. Not added yet. So when we click on orders, there's no 10. As soon as we add that in, you will see back into the sales order that now we have an order row, right? So as soon as we add it in, it's going to give us a row. So if B3 is empty, we know it's a brand new order and it's a new row. So that's how we use it. Let's take out that 10 because we're about to add it in via the code. So into the sales order, now we can see B3 is empty. So we know there's no order row. So that's going to tell us it's a brand new order. So we can do some things. So if it's empty, then it's a new order. Order row is the first available row. Sheet 3, A999, and XLUP row. This is going to get us the last row with a value. But adding 1 is going to get us the first available row. That'll give us sheet 3. Also, A is going to give us the max, right? It's going to give us that brand new order ID plus 1. We just went over that. So we can actually, since I've already set it in E5, we could just do this. We don't need to run that formula again because we already have it here. So we can just copy this. Now we have it. Now we can just use E5 since it's already set. So we already have it here, right? Because we created on new. But the only reason that I did it, what if the user changes it to the wrong? Well, I think either one is good. That way the user has the ability to change this. Maybe they want it to 12 or something like that. And this is a drop-down list. If you'll see that, let's update this. I want the user to be able to enter anyone. Data validation. Let's make sure that the error alert is not on because we want them to enter another one, possibly, if they don't want to enter that. Okay, so now we have that. Let's save those changes. So I make sure to give you an updated workbook. It's free for you. Just download it using the links in the description below. All right, now E5 is going to set the incremental order ID for sheet 3 and A. It's going to put that ID there. Also, E5 is going to equal, wait, we really don't need that. We just set that. It's already there. Okay, it's because we just have it put there. Now that saves us a few lines of code since we just put it there. And so E5, as soon as they create a new one, E5 is going to get that brand new ID. So we don't need to add it. Now we're ready to go. Otherwise, why else? Existing order. So these 2 lines of code, if it's a new order, this 1 line of code, if it's an existing. If it's an existing order, our order row is going to be in B3. That is the index match formula. That's going to get us that specific row. All right, or just our match formula, not an index. Next up, we can add the items. These 5 lines of code is going to take the status, the customer name, the order date, the delivery date, and the total cost, and it's going to take them from sheet 1 and bring them into sheet 3. So it's going to take whatever the user's entered here, 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 here. I guess we can default that to the current date. Probably would be good. And so why don't we do that? K3. Let's do that in the new, just in case to make it a little bit easier. New order. We can do this. Dot range K3 equals. Let's do now, because now maybe some user will want the time and the date. So we can do now. And now when we click new order, it's going to get us that automatically. So cancel new and then new order. There, now we have the order date there. It's defaulted to the current date, October 6, 2019, today. Okay, so now we have that, and we can add a status on that. Let's say pending and delivery date of 10/10. We can then add some products. Let's go ahead and add some different products. Add to the list, and then we can add to the list. So we can add different. These are the sales quantity. Okay, so now we've got a few different products. All right, and add that to the list. We can also change the quantity here as well. Add to the list again. So we've got, and now all we need to do is save the order, and it's going to save that. It's going to assign it. And now, let's say now we have it. Now we go back to 9 and then back to number 10, the one we just created. We'll see that all those details just get loaded in just the way we had them. All right, so now back into the order save and update. Now we've added all the information in the basic information for our order. Now we want to add all the details. I want to show you how we do add all these details into the table here, order details. So I'll show you how we do that. Into the code, we're going to save and update item details. First thing I want to do is get the last item row so we can run a loop through that. And in this case, the last item row is 24. So we're going to run a loop from 20 to 24 and take all those details and get them into the table. So the last item row, if it's less than 20, go to no items. We've got to make sure it's at least 20. Here's our loop for item row equals 20 to last item row. So all of this is going to go into our loop. Let's highlight that so we can bring it over, so we can highlight that, tab it over so we can clear. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure one thing. If this number exists, what is this number here? This is the database number. 32 is where apples are stored. So if we look into 32, we see that that is where that item is stored in row 32 of its database. Back in the sales, if we see grapes, 33, 34, 35, 6. But what if we add a new item? What if we add, let's take and we say we want to add raisins and we want to add that to the list. There is no database, right? Because we have not updated the order or saved the order. So what I want to do is when we're saving this order, if it's got an existing row, then all we're going to do is update that row. But what if it's missing? If it's missing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first available row, in this case 37, and I'm going to add it to that. And then I'm going to take that 37 and I'm going to add it right back here and put it in this. So when we click update order, now you see 37 has been added, and we go back to the order details in line 37. You see that is all added to that. That way, when we reload it, we know exactly where to put it. So we need to run a check. First thing I want to do is I want to see if this is empty, then use a new row. If it's existing, use the existing row. So we do that in VBA. If L in the item row equals empty, then it's a new row. Where's the order detail row? That's the row. Order detail row is the row right here. 37, 36, 35. So the order detail row would be the first available, in this case 38. If it's not empty, the order detail row would be here, whatever's in L. So we need to run that distinction so we know what row to update. So if L is empty, then it's a new order row. Order detail row equals sheet 4, which is our order details, all the way to the last row with a value, adding 1. That's our first available row. I'm going to add in the order ID because I only do these 2 things, or these 3 things, for new orders. What are those 3 things? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is enter an order ID into column A. Column A gets the order ID in the order, column A, because for existing, we've already added it. So I want to put the order ID right here in column A. And then I also want to add this formula into G, but I only want to do it once because I don't need to do it each time. So G gets the formula row. That keeps track of the row. That's very important. All right, so back into that. The row Here we add the row and column G, and then I want to put whatever is in the order detail row. I want to put that into L. What is that? I want to take this and put in that new row, put it in right here. So we know if we update it again, it now has an assigned row in the database. So that is how we go through that. Otherwise, existing item, order detail row equals whatever's in L. Now we're ready to update the information. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use two lines of code, and all we're going to do with those two lines of code is I'm going to take this here from D through E, in fact D through E, copy that, and we're going to put it right, almost like a copy and paste. I'm going to put it right here, B through C. Otherwise, I'm going to also, the second line, I'm going to take whatever is in H through J. Remember, total is just a formula. H, ID, quantity, and price, H through J. And we're going to bring it right into here, D through F. That's it. So there's just those two lines of code. So sheet 4, B and the order detail row through C and the order detail row equals, what does it equal? D through E, the name and description. Next up, D through F is equal to H through J. D through F is equal. So that all that does is it takes D through F here and it equals whatever is in here, H through J. So what we're doing is copying that information over so we can save it so they can load up next time. So that's pretty much it. That's all we need to do to save or update orders. Next up, we have order delete, and that's pretty simple. We want to run a check to make sure that, are we sure we want to delete, yes or no? If it's no, then exit the sub. Sheet 1, if sheet 1 B3 is empty, also exit the sub. What is B3? B3 is our row for the order. So we need to have a row. So as long as we have a row, we know what row to delete. Then we can assign that row into a variable, order row, sheet 1, B3. Then we're just going to run the line of code that in D3, we're going to delete the row. Theoretically, we should delete all of the associated items as well. Theoretically, if I was doing this application for selling it, I would also take all of these items that are marked with 3. What I would do is I'd put 3 here. I would run an advanced filter. I would get the row, and I would delete each one of those rows from here. But we're not doing that today because it's not necessary. But you really do want to do, if you're creating an application for your customers, you also want to delete the data from here as well. So every time there was to be a 3, we would need to delete that. So that's important. Okay, I just wanted to make that distinction so that we can do that. So make sure you add it. If you're going to take this application and create a marketable application, or you're going to create it for your customers, you want to make sure to remove the associated items as well. All right, next up. So we want to order cancel new. What does this do? It runs the macro that takes whatever is in our first or whatever's here, A2, and puts it right here into sales order. So that way when we delete an order, if I click delete, we're going to get OK, and it's going to take the first order and it's going to load it. Putting that 1 here loads all the order details. So it allows us to delete an order. All right, you can also put in fade out messages for confirmation. That's nice. I didn't use those because we have a lot of things to cover, and we've covered fade out messages so many times. Order cancel new. Again, just what we're doing it. As long as A2 is not blank on sheet 3, what is that? That is the orders. A2 must not be blank. We have to have an order to populate. Take this order number 1, populate it right into E5. As soon as we do that, it's going to load up 1. As soon as we enter a 1 here, it's going to load that order up automatically. So that's all we're doing on cancel new. Going to run that. Then sheet 1 E5 equals sheet 3 A2. So it just places the first order ID to load the order. All right, so we've covered all of the macros in orders, and now let's go over a few macros and products. Once we go through the product macros, then we're going to show you how to take all this and bring it into an app. Okay, into the module product max, we've got multiple macros here. We have the product load, which is going to load the product details. We have product save or update, which gives the users to make a change or add a new product and save that product. We have the product add new, which is going to clear the contents. Add to the list, which is going to take the product and add it to the list below. Then we have the product add picture, and then we have the product clear. So we got those to cover. I'll cover them right now. Into the product load, what do I want to do when the product load is? Well, there's 2 ways a product can be loaded. We can click here. It's going to load all the product details from the table below. Or we can add a brand new product. We can click here. We can click Kiwi, and it's going to load the product here. So there's 2 ways we can load the product. The same macro is going to run both those. By making a change to the product name, it's going to load all the details for that specific product. All right, so there's two ways, and let's go through the macro that. I want to know the product row. That's very important. Our product is here. I need to know what row in our list. And if you'll see, we have also a named range. It's going to help us pull the row up. When we click on the formulas, named range, we're going to see we have a name range called product name. It's a dynamic using offset, which we're going to keep track of the name. So using the name, we can pull up the row that product is on. That allows us to load all the details from that row. So we can do just that back into the sales orders. We need to know the product row is here, the selected product row, and the selected product row info. What is this? Matching E13. We're going to match that name. We're going to match it in the product name. We need to get an exact match. That's going to tell us what row it's found on. But if we add one, because this is going to tell us if it's the first item found. If it's the first item found, it's going to be on row 2. Because our header rows, so we do need to add one just as we usually do. So it's going to add one, it's going to tell us what row. But also, what if it's a selected? What if we're selecting it? I got to know what row we've selected. The selected row is going to be here in B5. So that's going to tell us what row. And then so if it's a selected product row, I've got to know what it is based on this row here. So that means what I want to do is I want to look up strawberry here, and I want to look up strawberry based on whatever's in D24. That is the strawberry. So I want to look that up. How do we get D24? We can use this selected product row. We're going to use index. What are we indexing? We're going to index D all the way. We're going to use B5 minus 19. Why B5 minus 19? B5 is our selected row, which is 24. But I want to find, if I want to find Apple, I need to subtract 19 because I want to know the first value, which is in this particular index would be 1. So how do I get to that? Let's select it and let's get out of that and select it just so we can make it clear. If the user selects Apple, how do I get the name Apple? What do I have? I have that they've selected row 20 and I know that it's in column D. So how do I get the value of D20? Well, what I want to do is I want to know the first value in a specific range. What range is that? Well, that range here is selected range D20 through D48. That range, the first value would be Apple. So we can use that B5 minus 19, 20 minus 19 is 1. So our row number is 1. Our column number is 1. So when we index D20 through D48, and we have our row number is 1 and our column number 1, it's going to return the first value. This is the first value. In this case, it's Apple, right? So we're going to match Apple in the product names, and we're going to get an exact match. Then we're going to add 1, and that is going to tell us the row that it's on. In fact, Apple is on row 2 here. So it's going to tell us that row. So we need to know that because that's really going to help us out. Once I know the row, I can then load all of Apple's information. I can load the product description, I can load the price, I can load the image, and all the information associated with that. So we need to know that row. Back into our macro we go. I also need to know the workbook file locations in the workbook path. Why is that important? Because that's where our pictures are stored. If we look here into our product images, our order, this is the folder in which it's stored in. Our product images are here inside that. So I need to pull that. That's very important information so that I can pull those pictures out. So I need to know where the application is stored. In this case, it's stored in this path right here. Okay, so moving on. So we need to know that, and I want to put the file location in this workbook path. That allows us not to have to specify a specific path. So as long as the pictures are in the folder within near the workbook, we got that covered. The product load, if B9 equals true, product load from the table below. So there's two ways to load. I need to differentiate. What do I mean? One, is it going to select it from a specific cell? That's one type of load, or there's another type of load. So I need to know, what is this? So when I select something, something is running, a macro is running. Let's take a look at that and see what kind of macro is running. That would be on the sheet, and we have selection change on the worksheet. If the user makes a selection anything from D20 to K49 and D is not empty. Why is that? If the user makes a selection anywhere from D20 all the way to K and D has to have a value. So if they select here, there's nothing in D, right? Nothing's going to happen. So they have to select something that there's actually going to happen. We use conditional formatting. What I want to do is I want to take whatever row the user has selected, I'm going to put it right here into B5. So B5 will change as the user makes those selections. So we can do that. So then do what? Then B5 equals the target row. B9 gets set to true. What does that tell me? That tells me that the user has made a selection to the table. B9 goes to true, and then it goes back to false. So if you look at B9 very carefully, you're going to see it goes to true and false, right back. So that tells us when it becomes true, then I know to pull the name from here and put it up here. So we know all that is very important. So B9, and then we're going to run the product load macro, which is the macro we're going over. And then we're going to turn B9 back to false. So all that does is it turns B9 to true, runs the product load macro, and turns B9 back to false. So back into the product macros. If B9 equals true, then the user has selected a product from below. We want to load the product from below. B9 equals true. Then what the product row equal to B7, and E13 equals sheet 5B in the product row. The product name goes into sheet 5. E13 equals sheet 5. What is the product row? Well, the product row is right here, B7. But what if the user has actually made a change from here? Then I need to pull this name. Then I need to pull the product row from here. In this case, it is B11. So let's go over that again. Otherwise, let's do change to product. Okay. Right, selected. Remember, there's two changes. One change is here where we want to load this product here, and another change is here where we want to load this product. So there's two types of ways we can load the information. One is selection. I'm just differentiating between those two types of changes. Okay, so that tells us the product row. Now, as long as we have the product row, everything else, regardless of the user made the selection from the table below or they change, everything else is going to stay. We're just going to load all the information into the individual cells from sheet 5, which is the product. So we don't need to go over that. And the picture path is going to be set on the file location, which is the workbook location, plus the backslash, and then sheet 5E in the product row. That is our file path, our picture name, which is located right here. Here is a picture image name, and sometimes it's got the folder product images. So you see raisins doesn't have it. So if I want to add raisins to that, so we can add that to the product images folder. Either way, it's going to find out based on this path. So we know where to locate and load those product images. So that's very, very important. All right, so it's going to load all the data. And of course, we're going to then remove any picture just in case we want to remove any picture that might have been there before. And then I want to add the new picture. So we can do that. We have the full picture path now because we've just built it based on the file location and whatever's in E. We can load it. We can then set a specific height and we can assign it a name. Once we've assigned it a name, we can then position it right near J13, moving a little bit over and incrementing it over. So that's just going to position our picture right here. It's going to size it and it's going to position it automatically. So if I change that and load it again, it's going to revert right back to where it was. So that positions our picture right here. Okay, so moving on, now that we've had it, we're just going to update, save the product button. Again, we have product button sets. Save it, it's going to be false because it's not a new product, because it's an existing product, and update the product button. Again, just like we did on orders, we have new product here. We have this add product button. We have update product. So I want to make sure that this update product button is displayed, because if we click a new product, you see the button changes to save product. Well, hopefully we'll get to that because we're kind of running out of time this week and I want to make sure to get it. So save product button. All right, so we have that, so you understand the differences, those two buttons based on an existing product or a new product. So that's all we're doing here with these two lines of code based on the existing. And then B12 is false. Set the new product. It's no longer a new product. B12 handles that. All right, product save and update. All we're doing here in this video, in this particular macro, is we're just making sure that there is a product name. We can't save a product unless the user has actually added a name. So we're going to make sure B11 equals empty. It's a new product. B11 tells us, B11 is the row here. If this is empty, that would mean there was an error, and that means it's an existing product. So if we click new product, you'll see that B11 now goes to blank. So we know it's a new product. If we load a product, it's going to contain a row of that product. B11 tells us whether it's an existing product or a new product. We can then set the product row. If it's a new product, the product row is going to be the first available on sheet 5. We can also set the product name only for new products. And then the product row is going to be for existing. It's going to be in B11. Then we add all the product data here just with these lines of code, and we update the button set. Product new, we're doing just clearing out the fields. We're updating the button sets, showing the save product button is true and hiding the update. And then we just delete any thumbnail picture. Right. When we click new, we don't want any thumbnail. Setting the new product to true and selecting it. Why is that? Because I want to select it when we move it. So when we click new product, I want the user to select so that they can start typing in their new name right here. So that's all we need to do on that. All right, let's move on. Product add to the list. That's all we're doing is simply we're just going to take the product information and we're just going to whatever product is displayed here, if the user has selected a specific product like grapes and I want to add it to the list, just click add to list. It's going to take the information and bring it down here and add it to list. That's very simple, so you can go through that, download your copy. All right, and then we have product add picture. We've been through this so many times. And then we have product clear. So those two macros, take a look at those. They're really simple. I've been over that a few times. Let's get to how we upload this on AppSheet. Now we have our application. Remember, our application is made up of pretty much 4 tables: customers, orders, order details, and products. Now I put this last. In this case, I want this sheet last because this we don't want on our mobile sheet. We don't want this on our mobile app because there's no data here. This is only a front end. We really focused on the data. So with AppSheet, if you haven't had AppSheet yet, if you haven't seen AppSheet, it's right here. You can find it at www.appsheet.com. It's really amazing. You'll want to sign up with Dropbox. It's the easiest and best way. So you'll connect your Dropbox account. If you don't have Dropbox, you'll want to get it. It's free. It's a great way to back up your data, and it keeps things really secure. So what you'll want to do is log in. We went over it last week, but what you want to do is just simply create a new account and connect your Dropbox. Once it's connected, everything is easy. So now you'll see I have no apps. I have no apps. Mine's connected to Dropbox already. Great. So I want to create a brand new app. And I want to start with my own data. Last week, what we started with the sample app. This week, we're going to start with our own data. We're going to let's call it sales order app. Okay, and let's give it a category because we wanted to understand what we're trying to do. Probably closest to sales and CRM, and then click next step. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring all the data from your Dropbox into it as soon as we've located it. So we want to locate where, we want to browse for where this particular application is. It's in our app sheet, data, sales app, and it's here, orders XLSM. It'll probably be called differently when you get it, but it's just called orders for now. And so it's going to bring all that data in, and we have to do a few things with it until we can get it ready, just so we know. So now we've got it. It's created just like that. And let's take a look at the data. And what I don't want, there's a few things I want customers. Good. Here's our data right here. Here's all our data. So I want to add in all the data. So it already added in customers here. So let's add in the orders. Okay, good. So now orders are added in. And then we want to, let's say we minimum, we just click on it and it shows us, now we have 2 tables in here. And I want to add more. I want to add order details. So let's add that in. And now that's added in, and our app is slowly being built. So now we have one more. I want to also add in products. I don't want to add in sales orders. Remember, there's no data. Take a look at it. Sales orders is nothing. There's nothing. This is the front end. There's no data held in here, so I don't want that. It's just going to confuse the app. No reason to put that in here. But keep this in mind. If sales orders at the beginning, it's going to create an issue. So you want to make sure when you're uploading it to app that all of your data is in the beginning, and your front end app, if there's no data here that's being held, have it at the end, and then that'll help avoid issues. So the last thing, I want to put products in here. Okay, so now we have 4 tables into it. Now we can start to build up our app a little bit so we can see. Let's expand this a bit. So now we have customers, orders, order details, and products. We have all of that in there. And now it automatically created some buttons here, but we don't need a few things. Let's take a look at what it did. Going into the UI, we have a look. We have some orders. Now if we take a look, the primary views are orders. And take a look, when we click here on orders, we have our orders here, which is nice, all the way here. And we have our calendar 1 and we have a calendar 2. We really don't need 2 calendars. So let's remove 1. We see we have all of our views here. Calendar 1, we can just delete it. We don't need 2. Yes, we're sure. So it deletes it from here. Now we have a calendar. Now let's take a look at the map, and let's click on the map and let's take a look at it. That's what I want. I want customers. But what do I want? I want the customer's address is really what I want. Street address, good. And I want a view of that. What kind of view do I want? I want a map view. So let's save it and check it out and see how it goes. All the modifications that we've just made. Okay, great. Now we have a map automatically based on our customers' addresses. That's great. We have orders and we have a calendar, but our calendar is not being populated. There's no data in here yet. So let's take a look at that. Calendar, we want to show the calendar. That's the nice name. Customers, no, I want to show the orders actually. Let's take a look at our data. Our orders, right, we have an order date and we have a delivery date. So I want to really focus on those 2 dates. If we look in our order details, we have 2 dates in here. Let's take a look. We have an order date and a delivery date. So these are the dates that I want to bring into our calendar. So how do we do that? We have the calendar, we have the orders for this date. So let's take a look at the view options. What is the start date? I'm going to have the order date as the start date. We don't have any times, so we haven't specified. If you do have times, you can specify them here. And I want an end date. We'll call that the delivery date. So now we have our information in there. What do we want to show? I don't want to show the order status. I want to show the customer name. So now we have our data. Now we can save it and update that. And what that's going to do is regenerate it. And so we can see and display this information here automatically in our application. Back into the calendar we go, and now when we click on it, we can see that Carol is automatically on Tuesday. So we have that, and we click on that, and we actually see that delivery date 10/1. We have it. So it's a great way to go. There's a lot more we can get into. We can't get into too much detail on this because we have a limited time. I could literally spend 20 hours on this teaching you this as soon as I learn it all. There's a lot I haven't learned, but I'll go over with what I learned, and hopefully you're going to take it off from there and really make this an amazing app. So we have calendar, so you can see how this information, you can display the customer name. We could display order status if we had it, or customer name. We chose customer name, and we can give it a category or something like that. We can show a week view, which is kind of a nice view if you want to default. Now we have our week view, or we have a day view, so we can show that on each day. We can move throughout the days. So it's really a great feature. We can show the week and month view here. Really powerful. We also have the display. You can control a lot of, you can control the icon of this. If we want to change it to heart, we just change the icon and it changes it down here automatically. So, and if you want to browse for it, just click calendar. You can browse for a different, you can change lots of different calendars. So we can add the icon there, changes the icons, which is really amazing. We have order details, but we don't have products in here. Let's add products. I want to see products. So how do we add a product? Let's go ahead and add a deck view. Let's add a deck view. And now we have a deck view, but let's take a there. It automatically found products for us, which is great. Okay, but if you'll see, it's here. These options are now in. These are really much the same, so we can actually remove one of them. We don't need 2 of them. So let's go ahead and remove one of them because we have 2 of them. Just click here and click delete. It'll delete it. Are you sure? We can have 2, I guess. We could have one here and we could put another one here. But either way, let's take products. Let's take this one here. And I want to now show it inside. So we'll click here in the products, the menu views. And I want to see, I don't want it on the menu. I want it on down here. So we can click, and let's say I want to put it on the first thing. I want to put it left. And what that's going to do is take products and put it right here on the left here. So now we have it here. So we have a lot of information that we can put in AppSheet, and you can slowly build out. So let's say we want a product, we want a gallery view to show the products. That gives us a nice gallery view. Or we have a detail view. We can show the products here in detail. So now what we've done is we've taken Excel application and brought it into an app, created our own mobile app. And of course you have the ability to update, add, remove, as well. And as soon as we add to Excel, it's going to update here. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot more we can do. So I just wanted to give you a good idea of at least the primary of how to add an Excel application into app. And it gives us, there's so many different features here. So go through it and let me know how you think. We've gotten over an hour here, so let's end this here. Thank you so much. Please download the application. And of course, if you do like this, you get over 100 if our 100 workbooks. So make sure you check on that if that's something you like. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.